Welcome back to another episode of Let's Face the Facts. I'm your host. I'm David Almeida. I'm an actor in Orlando, Florida, and every week I sit down with an actor or artist friend. We watch an episode of The Facts of Life, and then I hit record. We talk about the show. We talk about my guest. We talk about anything and everything else that we might be able to think of, and hopefully we have some fun along the way. This week, my guest is Steve Purnick. I have introduced so many people as funny guy. Steve is a funny guy. That is such an understatement. Steve Purnick is someone who defies description. Okay, imagine a sitcom. That typical sitcom trope of the funny character who is always off to the side. Not one of the lead characters, but the funny supporting character that steals the show. Steve is that person. Always seemingly off in the corner, somewhere on the outskirts, in just the periphery of your vision, who will throw out a zinger, a pun, a joke, and it is astounding the way his brain works and how he is always in make the funny mode. And I think you get a good sample dosage of that in this episode as you listen along. Steve and I watched season 3, episode 8. It was called From Russia with Love. Its original air date was December 16th, 1981. And this was an episode I specifically asked Steve to do, and you will learn why very soon if you haven't already figured it out. I think we're ready to jump on in, kids. Let's face the facts with Steve Purnick. Well, here he is, ladies and gentlemen. The wonderful, the fabulous, the hilarious, waving to the microphone, Steve Purnick.
Yeah, isn't that how radio works or whatever this is?
Whatever.
Whatever this is. It's Let's Face the Facts, the podcast that reveals all.
Yeah.
In the Facts of Life universe.
It's a deep-ass dive, let me tell you.
Well, I was alive in the 80s, which is good.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
He and I just watched, before we get into the meat of the show, we just watched From Russia with Love.
Yes.
And is that like a title of a movie, like a James Bond?
Yeah, it's the title of a James Bond book and movie.
Oh,
yeah.
I can't believe I knew that.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
I'm deeply shocked.
From Russia with Love. This is a very different From Russia with Love.
This is, we don't have a James Bond. There's no gadgets or killing people.
There's no sexy gypsies catfighting over. That's the best part of From Russia with Love.
Is it? I've never seen it. I didn't even know I knew what it was.
Yeah, and Robert Shaw is a crew-cutted blonde assassin.
Oh yeah,
for the Russians.
The James Bonds never. I like the newer ones. The newer ones with Daniel Craig. I'm like, okay, because they have a much more modern spin to them. But
you're not a Connery guy, huh?
I mean, I'm not in anything. I didn't really care for any of them.
All right.
They don't really grab me.
Well, there you go. So clearly, as we discussed this From Russia with Love,
yes,
we can say I'm much more of an expert on the other From Russia with Love. This one is all new to me.
Yeah. As the show wound down, you gave your review in 2 words. Do you remember what you said?
No, what did I say?
Moments ago. You just went, so corny.
Yeah. Facts of Life is corny.
Yeah.
It's a very corny program.
It was of its time.
Yeah.
We will certainly give it that.
But even so, I think time or not time, even in the 50s and 60s, in every decade, there's always been really smart, witty sitcoms that would get all of the Emmys and things.
Gilligan's Island?
No, not Gilligan's Island.
No,
that's not a smart and witty sitcom. And then there would be sort of the populist ones.
Yeah.
That was sort of the aw shucks and you feel good but there's not necessarily it doesn't challenge you intellectually.
No.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you have your All in the Family on this side, but your Happy Days and your Laverne and Shirley over on the other side.
Right. There's nothing wrong with it. It's like it's TV Prozac, really.
Yeah, or a little bit of junk food, a little bit of...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I do not disagree. So before we start getting into synopsizing the show, 2 things I always like to ask my guests. Number 1 is You already alluded to it, saying you were alive in the 80s. Do you have a relationship with this show, as in, did you watch it first run? Or
No, I was certainly aware of it. I knew the characters. I knew there's Mrs. Garrett and Tootie and Natalie and Joe and Blair.
Yeah.
I could have named all the characters walking in.
Yep.
And kind of faked some of the theme song and whatever. I know that George Clooney was on it for a hot minute as a semi-regular. I know that Molly Ringwald was on the first season, so I kind of know the kitsch stuff.
You know more than some others who have sat here.
But I cannot say that I was ever. It wasn't destination television. For me.
You weren't a devoted fan. You were a peripheral.
Oh, yeah.
Now, before we get into the synopsis of the show, I would like to ask you if you could give us a just 1 or 2 sentence compressed synopsis, like you might see in a TV guide listing. When you see The Facts of Life, 9 p.m. Wednesday night, From Russia with Love.
Natalie's plans for a romantic getaway are thwarted when Grandma comes to town.
That is perfect.
Yeah?
That's perfect. And no spoilers.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't think that's even the TV ads had to have the grandmother in them.
Yeah.
That was it. That was beautifully done, sir.
Oh, I thank you very much.
You should do improv or something, Steve.
or I should write for TV Guide.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh.
No.
Oh.
Wah, wah. It's still out there, just... Who the fuck buys it?
Exactly. Who would ever read TV Guide?
And it's 8.5, 11. Like it's full size. It looks like People or Time. It's on the newsstand, and you're like.
At one point, the greatest periodical in the United States.
Never missed an issue.
And
oh my God.
And now nobody.
Yep.
Well, this is times changing.
Yep. So true.
So I'm really not here as any kind of Facts of Life fan. I think because Natalie was a Jewish girl and this is her Jewish grandmother.
Yes.
I'm here as your token Jew friend.
Oh no.
I think that's what it is. I think I'm here for my hebitude.
Well, let's address this right here. Here's a funny little story. When we did the attempt to do a backdoor pilot called Brian and Sylvia, at the end of the second season, they tried to create another show of Tootie's aunt, an African-American woman, and her husband, played by Richard Dean Anderson.
Oh, MacGyver.
Pre-MacGyver.
Wow.
So it was supposed to be a show about a young couple who was interracial in 1980. So it was going to be kind of revolutionary.
It's
for
a little
its
boundary
time.
pushing.
Yeah. It was not very well written, though. And Cameron Francis went through it with me, and word got back to Trinell about what an awful, horrific piece of shit we had just watched with terrible racial humor. And Trinell went to me and said, "Why didn't you ask me to do it? I would have enjoyed that."
You could have had a white gentleman and a black female.
Yeah.
To watch the white gentleman and the black female.
We could have, but I said to her for the same thing. I said, I thought of asking you, but I didn't know how to do it without you making you as my friend feel like a token and saying, hey, as a black show, let me bring in the black friend. Can I say that word? Is it okay to use the
friend?
B word?
Yeah, I think you could say friend.
So Trinell beautifully and so elegantly just said, no, ask me. I don't care. That's fine. I'll be your token. That's cool.
Yeah.
So for future, I do know I can ask Trinell. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to make the same mistake with you. I told you what the episode was. I said, if I am offending you, tell me to fuck off.
The grandmother is played by Molly Picon, who was in the Yiddish theater in New York for years and years. It was a little fire plug of a gray-haired woman who reminds me very, very much of my own maternal grandmother, who spoke with a very thick Russian Jewish accent as well.
Is that your origins as Russia?
Mm-hmm, yeah. 3 of my 4 grandparents were born there. Only one was born here in this country, and she was the very first of her family. All of her older siblings were born in Russia too.
And then they came over.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
that was grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, my grandparents.
Now, I'm curious. I think I understand a little bit about what Yiddish is, but help me to understand. Yiddish is not technically a language connected to a place.
No, it's not, because
it's more of a cultural
because the Eastern European
amalgam.
Jew didn't necessarily have a place. There are certain cultures that exist or existed at least without a homeland. You think of the Gypsies that they call the Roma now. Certainly the Jews. Armenians, largely, there's, even though there is an Armenia,
Yeah.
there is a very large Armenian population in so many other
Okay, that
countries
makes
and
sense,
whatever.
yeah.
So they're certainly one. And so, yeah, there are these certain cultures that just sort of exist without a home. And
so that makes the language an amalgam of other types of languages, right?
And with Yiddish, it is largely German and Hebrew, with some Russian and some other ancillary Slavic stuff coming into it.
Cool. Well, are we ready to jump on into this?
Yeah, let's face the facts.
Oh, he said the title. Where's the duck that drops out of the ceiling? You see, I love when we work together because I can make a reference like that.
And I certainly understand.
And you, beautiful. But most people I say that to, and other than Wesley Slade, everyone else would just look at me blankly. Cricket. It's like you don't.
He was referencing the 1950s game show You Bet Your Life, hosted by Groucho Marx.
Thank you.
That's
Subtitle.
me, the human footnote.
Subtitle Steve voice. So our episode begins with Natalie putting on some nail polish.
Ooh.
And she's showing it off. And I do notice in the cafeteria on the background, the windows, they do have snow, like spray snow. And you can't really see through them. So they're like trying to...
So this must be some kind of Christmas break. The girls are getting ready to go on a ski trip.
Right. Because this show is broadcasting in December. So we're preparing for it. Now, it seemed to me like they were getting ready to leave like that day. Like they had suitcases packed.
Right? And then that sort of doesn't happen.
No, it's very weird. We'll get to that when we get to that. But at the moment, I will say, in the watching of the show, it is like, oh, okay, so they're getting ready to take a trip, and they're like leaving now to go to the train station or the airport or whatever.
Hit the slopes.
Yeah, hit the slopes. Blair comes in. As they often try to make Blair seem snooty or hoity-toity, they frequently give her French references. I think they're mirroring Miss Piggy. I don't know quite where.
That was the 1980s hoity-toity go-to?
I mean...
Was...
it was in the 30s when Cole Porter was writing, yeah, but I'm not so sure there was any huge cultural... I don't remember a big French cultural influence. Freak out, le freak, c'est chic. Yeah. Freak out, that was...
Was that Voulez, Couchet, Avec, ce soir?
That was in the 70s, I think.
You're right. That was the 70s. That was LaBelle.
Yeah. I don't feel like there was any especially greater French influence on our culture at this point in the early 80s than there was before. So it's Blair speaking French is always to me a kind of a simple crutch for the middle-aged vaudevillian writers that we often reference. So what we gather is that...
Bert Sugarman.
Bert Sugarman.
They all have names like Bert Sugarman, Al Waxman.
Who was the head writer on the first couple of 3 seasons of Carol Burnett? It was like Ira Grossberg. It was like right. Jewy McJewsalot.
Yes,
it was really.
I tried to come up with the Jewiest name that I could.
Okay, lay it on me.
Hebe Kuichenstein. That was the Jewish name I could come up with. And then I told it to my writing partner at the time, Richard Doctorow, and Richard said, I think I got you beat. Mezuzah I Love Money Knows. And so I walked away with the silver.
This is my son,
Mezuzah I Love Money Knows.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I need a minute to recover.
Well, this particular episode doesn't really hit Jewish stereotypes at all. I don't think in any big ways. Passive aggressive nudgy grandma, but
yeah,
I guess they're Jewy as hell.
They are.
Certainly, Mindy Cohn is Jewy as hell, and
but with Natalie, we do often get things about her talking about her mother, saying like, "My mother wouldn't believe it." So when I get home, my mother's going to be nagging. We get a lot of implications without it overtly saying that Natalie's Jewish mother, yeah. So now we're getting the grandma, and we don't know whose parent this grandmother is. We're not sure if it's maternal or paternal.
Right, they don't say.
Grandmother. But before grandmother arrives, though, what is happening is Blair is showing off her new skiing outfit. And so is Tootie. And expositionally, we get the wonderful, gee, Natalie, I really wish you would come skiing with us. And Natalie is like, nope, I'm going to be spending time in New York with my family. Mm-hmm. And then Tootie says, oh, by the way, and Tootie, who's typically the busybody, the nosy one, Tootie says, oh, by the way, a postcard came in from your parents. They said they're having a lovely time in Hawaii, et cetera, and she babbles on about other stuff. Do you still want to read it?
She read the whole postcard.
Oh, Tootie.
What are you up to?
But what that reveals is Natalie's parents are in Hawaii.
So I thought you said you were going to go home and stay with your parents, Natalie.
Okay, maybe there was a little bit of deception. Now, here's the thing. In an earlier episode, Natalie spent a lot of money on some makeup kit that Blair was selling. Countess Calais Cosmetics, and the figurehead was Zsa Zsa Gabor, who was a guest on that episode.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And you want the facts of life plus Zsa Zsa Gabor equals heaven. What happened was Natalie lied to her mother about needing money for some type of a field trip. So she was on the payphone and she's like, Mom, I need this money. Yeah,
the payphone.
The payphone. We're going to talk about that. But Natalie says, Mom, of course, would I lie to you? Like, we're having some ethics issues with. I didn't remember this when I used to watch it years ago. We have another one here where Natalie is being a duplicitous, lying.
She's a 15-year-old girl.
Yeah, a boy crazy girl.
Mm-hmm. And I believe there is definitely a lot of parental deception things that happen at that age.
Yeah, clearly. Natalie is going to be going up to New York, but to her parents' place where they are not, because she has a date with Chip Douglas, a boy from Bates.
She's entertaining a gentleman caller.
Gonna show her book of etchings. Mm-hmm. Show him her book of etchings. They do allude to the fact that, oh, he's that boy from Bates. He's so cute. They talk about how he's the one that wears glasses. And then someone else makes a later comment about, well, as long as you serve him something, it doesn't get caught in his braces.
Right.
They're painting a lovely picture here.
Now, was he made up out of whole cloth just for this episode? You go deep on this. Has there ever been this Chip fellow before?
No, Chip Douglas does not. He's one of many, many boys.
Chip Douglas, by the way, is a character on My Three Sons.
Is he?
Yes, absolutely. That exact name, Chip Douglas.
Oh, no.
Chip, Robbie, and Ernie are the three sons in the color version. There was an older brother that I guess was gone, and he was in the very early episodes in black and white.
Wow.
Yeah. Chip
See,
Douglas.
I never watched My Three Sons, so that was a little before my time.
I wonder if it was a little reference and a little Easter egg there for those who paid attention.
Oh, well, happy Easter, Steve.
I'm older than you, David.
And what better thing to give your Jewish friend than an Easter egg? But what's happening is, the story is, Natalie has told the school or the people at school, she's alluded to the fact that her parents are home and she's going to be spending the time with them. Now, her grandmother had apparently contacted her and said, well, are you going to come home for whatever this break weekend is? And she does say 2 days. How can I deny my parents 2 days with me? Mm-hmm. And then later they're like, you ain't going home to your parents. But 2 days, we're talking, this isn't even a long weekend. Yeah. I don't know what we're preparing for here.
Just a couple of nights.
Yeah, so very weird. And so Natalie has told her grandparents that she is staying at school to study. So school thinks she's going to be in New York. Grandparents in New York think she's going to be in school. At one point, someone even says, wow, Natalie, you've told an awful lot of lies to people. And she just kind of shrugs and says, survival.
Survival.
Doesn't she say that?
Something to that effect, yeah. It's called surviving or it's called survival.
Yeah, it's quite a deception here. And fortunately, this is a sitcom, and she completely gets away with it, and it's over in 7 minutes. Nope, I am just kidding. Then there is a brief point where the girls all talk about their grandparents. And there's a general consensus of, oh yeah, spending time in the city with your grandparents, yeah, they're old, they do old people things. It's just kind of general ageist things.
Yeah. Except for Jo, who feels a little cheated because she never got to meet her grandparents. They died on her.
Correct. Thank you for saying that, because I forgot that, and that comes into play later. I do have to point out something. Tootie says all her grandparents do is pine for the good old days. Okay, African American. It's 1981.
What were the good old days?
We'll give you.
Remember all the neat places we couldn't sit?
I know, the drinking fountains we couldn't go to.
Remember those fun times? Remember those neat fire hoses?
The pools we couldn't swim in.
Oh, Lord.
And yeah, wow. I'm not saying it's not possible. Yeah. There were certainly affluent...
Well, maybe like they didn't deal with Natalie's fatness. They didn't really deal with Duty's blackness in certain ways. It was like, yes, grandparents, when you age, you often do pine for the good old days, and everybody lives in nostalgia. But yeah, it's weird to assign that one to the African-American character. I think you're looking for way too much in an episode of Facts of Life. I mean, all they're trying to do is set up some stupid premise where somebody does something wrong and learns a lesson. Nobody's really looking at the timeline of even what this weekend is. Never mind.
You're so right.
Her parentage.
Oh, it's an exercise in insanity and futility, and sadly, Steve, that train's already left the station.
Ooh.
Here we are. When the girls are asking what Natalie's plans are, is that Chip Douglas, who is at Bates is a mile away. Why they have to go to New York to meet? We're in Peekskill. We're an hour outside of New York. So why they have to? I mean, it's to get him alone. But they're like, so what are you gonna do?
Maybe he's already gonna be in New York for the weekend. Maybe that's where his family lives.
I guess So she's like saying, well, I'm going to have him over. And I don't know exactly what she starts to talk about. As she starts to talk about what she thinks is going to happen, Mrs. Garrett bursts in. Natalie, your suitcase is upstairs, and I brought it down. You are invited to do your bad Charlotte Rae impression.
No, I can skip that one. That's all right.
Okay, you're going to leave me out here alone?
Yeah, it's just you.
Okay, because I do a really good bad Charlotte Rae impression, as you can tell.
Uh-huh.
So I invite you, if you are so inspired, please do join me. And Mrs. Garrett is wondering why Natalie's suitcase is so heavy. And it somehow flies open like suitcases do.
Upside down, by the way, which I don't think they planned.
Yeah. Prop fail.
Uh-oh.
And my cookbooks. Natalie, you hate cooking. And Natalie tells
I love cooking. But that's how that's, I think, a very large attempt to keep it away from the sexual. I'm making a meal for this fellow.
Yeah.
They're focusing on the eating rather than being alone in an apartment with an adolescent boy.
Yeah, because it will be many years before Natalie loses her virginity on the show. Not on the show, on the show.
I got to see that.
That's a different show. No sooner does Natalie start spinning some more lies than outside in the hallway we hear, yoo-hoo, yoo-hoo, and in comes the amazing Molly Picon.
Mm-hmm.
And she is Grandma. Grandma has decided, you know what? I couldn't bear to think of Natalie stuck at school studying. So she says, I brought you a package and I was going to mail it. But then I thought, why should I? I'm slipping into a Jewish grandma.
But she has a thick European Jewish accent. So go ahead and do it. I don't care. It's not going to offend me.
But she's like, but I had it and I was going to take it to send it to the post office. But then I thought my car is already pointed north and I'm more reliable than the U.S. Postal Service. Yeah. So
she shows up because poor Natalie, you're stuck here for the weekend. I'm going to come and I'm going to visit you. And it ruins Natalie's lie of getting away. Uh-oh.
That's lying, biting you in the ass.
Now, Molly Picon has a very, very, very thick Jewish accent, and she was from the Yiddish theater.
Yeah.
However, they never really say the word Jewish in the entire episode. They talk about her Russian ethnicity and later on the Cossacks and all that kind of stuff, the Bolsheviks, but they never really say Jewish.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Huh. I guess so.
Did you notice that?
It didn't, now that you pointed out to me.
And even the episode is called From Russia with Love. It's focused on the Russian immigrant, but not necessarily the Jewish immigrant.
Not from Jewtopia
with
love, as it probably should have been.
Yeah. My people were Russian Jewish immigrants. They were the Fiddler on the Roof Jews, the Shtetl Jews.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems that's like exactly what she's supposed to be, but without ever saying the name of the religion.
Yeah, you're right. It never is
never
explicitly stated. Huh. Well, what we end up happening is Mrs. Garrett offers her some tea or coffee, and she says, I'll take warm water with lemon. So Mrs. Garrett's like, good. Natalie, help me. in the kitchen.
Uh-oh.
And so now we know Natalie's going to get what for from Mrs. Garrett.
Because she got busted.
Yeah. Oh, nice little Tootie reference. So she's like, you start talking. So while they're in the kitchen preparing this, boiling the water, and they actually do pull some lemons out of the fridge. There are many episodes that there's no food, even though they're supposed to be cooking and preparing meals for a whole school.
Yeah. Oh, wow. If you're impressed by the presence of a lemon, they really must fail on that. Pretty big time.
Set the bar very low. So Natalie fesses up, and it's like, well, why don't you want to spend time with your grandmother? And Natalie just kind of has that, and they're not that overt about, she's old, and old is icky, but there is a sense of, she's just annoying, and we don't connect, and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Then we come out back to the dining room, and the tin that, by the way, the grandmother's name is Mona. Uh-huh. And the tin that Mona brought is open, and she is sharing pirozhkis with the girls. Am I saying that right?
Not really a word I know.
Really?
Pirozhkis. Yeah, I don't know from pirozhkis. Maybe are you going? He's going to the internet, folks.
I'm going to the internet, folks.
This just in. I mean, it sounds like pierogis, which is Polish, but I don't really know the term pirozhkis.
Go to Wiki Pirozhki. Pirozhki, which is Russian. Pirozhki are a Russian, Ukrainian, and Belarusian, is that how you pronounce that?
Sure.
Puff pastry, which consists of individual-sized baked or fried buns stuffed with a variety of fillings. The stress in pirozhki is properly placed on the last syllable. So they're saying it wrong, pirozhki. A common variety of pirozhki are baked stuffed buns made from yeast dough and often glazed with egg to produce the common golden color. They commonly contain meat, typically beef, or a vegetable filling, mashed potatoes, mushrooms, onions, and egg, or cabbage. Pirozhki could also be stuffed with fish, like salmon, or with an oatmeal filling mixed with meat or giblets. Sweet-based fillings could include stewed or fresh fruit, apples, cherries, apricots, chopped lemon. Okay, that's probably what we're talking about. We're talking probably about a desserty
version
thing. I can't imagine the girls are eating... What did I say? Cabbage?
Giblets.
Giblet.
Here, girls. Giblet. Giblicious.
Oh, wow. So we've got the girls enjoying and singing the praises of these pirozhkis. I'm sorry, pirozhki. That is the plural. Pirozhki. That is the plural. You're right. Thank you for correcting me. So Mrs. Garrett says, "Stay for dinner." And she's like, "Oh, no, I couldn't. I got to get home to my husband. We're playing bridge or something. Playing gin tonight." And then she says, suddenly Mrs. Garrett's like, "The roads are getting icy. You shouldn't be driving. Stay over."
Think right. The idea is she wants to truly thwart Natalie's plans.
Yeah.
And she can see that Natalie doesn't want Grandma there. So here you go, kid. I'm going to make her be here.
Yeah. Though I'm going to inconvenience an old woman in her 70s. That's kind of weird.
That's the writing of the show you love so dearly.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Her husband's name is Herman, for whatever that's worth. So
Glimscher.
What?
Herman Glimscher.
Glimscher.
If you're listening to this, you might be a fan. That's a Dick Van Dyke reference.
Oh,
That's
is it really?
Dick Van Dyke show? Yes.
Yeah.
Herman Glimscher was Sally Rogers' on again, off again boyfriend.
Oh, was he? Oh, okay, cool. All right. Well, it ends up with the plan that she is going to stay, and very illogically, on a couple of occasions, they've had people staying over. And it's like, never addressed, where do people stay when they stay over?
But they addressed it here.
Mrs. Garrett says, "Natalie and Mona, you are going to stay in my room, and I'm going to go bunk with the girls."
And hers looks like a normal bedroom, and they have a fold-out bed as well.
They brought in a fold-out bed, thank goodness.
Yeah.
And,
Seemed to make good sense.
Mm-hmm. So before they go, before we move on to this next scene, Mona does have to make the phone call to Herman to tell him that she's not going to be coming home and playing gin tonight.
On an old 1980s giant metal payphone on the wall.
Steve, what sound did you make? You made a funny...
Did I gasp at the payphone?
You just kind of went, oh. You made some type of an audible, like holy shit, look at that. Because it's bigger than her.
Ancient technology now.
Yeah. The
stuff we grew up with.
And she's so tiny, she's like reaching up to it to put the coins in. So after she makes the phone call, we go up into the bedroom. Now, this is where we get a little bit of the guilt trip grandma situation, where Mrs. Garrett comes in to check. Oh, first of all, she's singing. She's...
Yeah, she's got this little song that she keeps singing that Natalie keeps dismissing, and you just know it's being telegraphed from so far out that this song is going to mean something at some point.
There's a payoff coming. But it's just added to the list of annoyances in addition to her weekend plans being thwarted. But before we go on, this is the point where Mrs. Garrett says, if you girls don't mind me bunking with you. And I'm like, I thought they were going skiing.
Right,
what
happened? They were all dressed for it.
Why did Natalie have a suitcase actually packed and zipped and needed bringing down by Mrs. Garrett for this 2-day weekend, which Blair clearly says, why don't you come skiing with us instead of what you're doing? Like, it is an either or. So, script writers, let's do a little bit better, okay? Please, thank you. We have...
35 years ago.
Got to get in our time machine and give them our notes. That's what we're going to do. So when Mrs. Garrett comes in to check, she's like, how do you like, is everything okay? You comfortable? And Mona says, oh, the bed is lovely. I mean, some people like it soft. Yes. So Mrs. Garrett is like, you mean you need it harder? I could go get a bedboard for you. And she's like, oh, no, don't bother. And Natalie says, Mrs. Garrett, when she says don't bother, bother.
Right. And that's once again, very Jewish mother.
Very
Jewish grandmother.
Very Jewish.
Right.
Yeah, I'll just, how many Jewish mothers does it take to change a light bulb? Yes. None. I'll just sit in the dark.
I remember my friend Lisa's mother would say, no, you eat. I'll have less. It was like, what do I do now? I really honestly don't know what I'm supposed to do. Now, do I eat?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, no, I ate yesterday.
No, go ahead, you eat. I'll have less. So they nailed that.
So, yes. So they got that right there. So Natalie and Mrs. Garrett go out to get the bedboard. No sooner do they return, and they come in the room, and she's nowhere to be seen. And it's like, where is she? Oh, my God, she's on the floor. Mrs. Garrett and Charlotte Ray trying to play drama. Mm-hmm. Oh, my God! Trying to do her... she's a couple of oh, my gods in this. And it's like, ooh. It's...
but Grandma's okay. She's just on the floor doing leg lifts.
Yeah, I'm just doing my leg lifts. It helps with the circulation.
Wasn't that hilarious?
We
misdirected an old lady having a stroke.
That's comedy. So there is talk of, did I ever tell you about this? And Natalie's like, yes, Grandma, you're always telling me something. You're always doing, like, Natalie's particularly annoyed because she's trying to apparently compose on a piece of paper what she is going to say when she makes the phone call to Chip Douglas to tell him she cannot meet him now on this date, which is taking place
Exactly. As far as we know.
Exactly.
The timeline is all over the place.
It's crazy. And the grandmother does say, I never seen so much trouble being made over talking to a boy. There's always another boy. And Natalie's like, well, maybe I don't want there to be another boy, and shut the fuck up, you old bitch. I'm paraphrasing.
You were quite a bit.
Yeah. The grandmother goes to pinch Natalie on the cheek, and she tries to give her a kiss. Oh, explain to me. She says, all right, well, I'm tired. And she pinches her cheek. Mm-hmm. And then she does this kind of a kiss and then a throw.
Yes. Natalie clearly doesn't want to be touched. So then just when it's time to kiss her goodnight, she leans in and realizes, oh, I can't do that. So she kisses her hand and throws it at her. But it was a really lovely piece of physical business that got a nice round of applause from the audience. Because Molly Picon's an all-pro.
She fucking rocks it. She's great in this episode.
The material is thin, but she handles it just beautifully.
Absolutely. So, finally, Natalie says, you ruined my weekend. Like, she turns out the light. Natalie doesn't want the light off because she's still writing her thing. Why would you turn the light off? And then she finally says, ruined weekend. Oh, you've ruined my weekend. And then... oh, it comes out that Natalie was deceiving the thing about when she was going to be. And so Mona says something about, you can lie to a mother, but you do not lie to a grandmother.
Right. Like the writing to your parents was forgivable, but not to me.
Yeah.
And she kind of storms out and goes downstairs.
And she's like, she ends up saying, what? No, I'm going to leave. You hate me, clearly. And she says, Grandma, I don't hate you. She says, all right, you love me. You just hate being with me. I'm going to go. Where are you going to go? Don't bother. And she walks out. End of act. Fade to black, and we go to commercial. And
For legs.
is that your favorite commercial?
I don't know. From Drug Yard B, 1981. It's
legs,
pantyhose in an egg.
I often ask my guests to name a commercial from the era. You did this without my asking.
Oh, well, there you go.
You're psychotic. Wow. Well, during the commercial portion of the episode, this is when I like to do a little getting to know you with my guest. And
kind of fragrance that's here to stay, and they call it
Charlie. There it is. That's another one. I will be posting those to the website.
There you go.
So, Steve, I kind of do a little bit of a James Lipton-y thing here as far as in our day-to-day theme park lives, our characters, they don't cross paths very often. They didn't back when we were around a lot, and
Correct.
they do so even less now.
Do you have some kind of questionnaire for me? Is this what we're leading to?
Well, it's like the James Lipton, just where were you born?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was born in the Bronx.
Okay, you're a New Yorker.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
Never really lived there. My parents, who were Bronx Jews, had just moved to a garden apartment in New Jersey, I guess in anticipation of their second child, who was me.
Oh.
But it was, right across the George Washington Bridge, and all my mom's doctors were still in the Bronx and whatever. And so I was born in the Bronx.
Okay.
To her Bronx doctors, and then brought home across the bridge to New Jersey.
Okay. And New Jersey is home where you grew up,
Yeah,
you feel is that. Okay. And then where did you study as far as, did you do any sort of secondary education after
I
high
did.
school?
I did a year at Glassboro State College in South Jersey and transferred up to Rutgers. I didn't have any support as far as for me to pursue the arts. Quite the opposite. I was deeply dissuaded and was pretty much told nobody's going to pay a penny of my college education if I'm doing theater and whatever. It's too bad because right when I was at Rutgers, if I had gone into the Mason Gross School of Arts and done a theater program there, I would have been with James Gandolfini. We're the exact same age, and I'm sure we would have been great pals.
Yeah. You could have been the Jewish James Gandolfini.
Yes.
You should bill yourself as that when you go back to stand-up.
Sopranoids. So no, I never finished college.
Okay,
because
but you
I think
did-
I was in huge denial of what I wanted to do, and I was just pursuing things I had no interest in.
Okay, so did you like do any theater studies at all in the course of that, or you didn't even get near it?
No,
because
I didn't get near it.
Wow. So
Then
where did the changeover happen?
my old high school drama teacher, who was a major improv guy, at one point decided I'm putting together an improv group with some of my favorite old students and the people that really had a good handle on this, and that's how my company Unexpected Company was born, and we started working in the clubs around New Jersey and then in Manhattan. Then we started casting beyond our friends, as the people who just weren't serious about it, stopped playing at it, and I started working with some people that you know in Unexpected Company: Mary Thompson Hunt, Mark Lehner, and then eventually. Just through people we knew in the improv circuits. One of them was Chris Oyen, who was kind of an improv god in Manhattan at the time and started working for Walt Disney World. And as he had needs at Pleasure Island, he brought some people down that he liked and thought could do a good job for him. And he brought Mark Lehner down and Mary Thompson Hunt down and me down. And
that was all for the very, very well-known, well-respected, and sadly missed Comedy Warehouse.
Yeah. At Pleasure
Comedy Warehouse at Pleasure Island, which was, how many shows did you guys do a night?
There were 5 a night.
5?
So 25 a week, but we would be, at my time, it was generally you would do either 17 or 18 a week, depending on your schedule. So that's a lot of darn shows a week.
That's a lot of damn improv.
Yeah.
Where improv is your full-time job, you have a 40-hour-a-week job, and all you did was improv. And
made a living at it. I was very fortunate, too, because I think I was there kind of at the exact right time, 91 to 99, which was it was still coming up when I first started Pleasure Island, and it reached this height, this fever pitch, where, you couldn't walk down the street on a Saturday night. There were lines to get in every club. It was insane.
It was huge.
It was a scene. Yeah. To be there for a scene. I love when that happens. I imagine and everything's lasts a little bit,
Yeah.
Haight-Ashbury was a scene for a few years.
Yeah.
Studio 54,
Yeah,
things, and then they're not. And that's kind of what happened. But luckily, I was gone from Pleasure Island before it became the Knot.
Yeah.
I think I just timed it really well.
That's always a good thing when you can look back and say, I got out just in time. So after the Comedy Warehouse kind of being the big, initial meat and potatoes thing that brought you to Orlando and all that, let us sidebar for a second. You also have done actual stand-up comedy.
Not much. No, surprisingly little.
Okay. Because working with you and being your friend and spending time with you is very much like being with a stand-up comic from, I'd say, the Catskills, somewhere between like 58 and 62.
I have a joke writer's mind.
You do. There you go. Bingo. When we did Laughter on the 23rd Floor at Mad Cow Theater,
I had to play an old Jew in a New York writer's room. Yeah, what a stretch.
Yeah.
Get me an ace bandage.
Yeah. But the thing was, all the rest of us it was like we were supposed to be a room full of Jewish writers, and all of us, it was me and Tim Williams and Heather Leonardi and
Brandon Roberts,
Glenn Gover,
and Philip Nolan.
And
Connor Marsico.
Connor Marsico. The secretary was Robyn Kelly. And did I
by
get
God,
everybody?
it was the tiniest little role, and she rang more laughs out of that than I imagine anyone who's ever done it on Broadway could have ever found.
Robyn Kelly is magic.
Yes.
I cannot wait to have her on the show. It's going to happen someday. But having you there was so important. You legitimized us.
I was the authenticity.
You were the authenticity, but not just for your presence, the fact that you kind of helped us get the vibe. You backstage is what this play is about. Interacting with you, Steve Purnick, backstage, where you're always looking for a joke or trying to make a pun when someone says something when they walk by you. That's what that play is. The play is a writer's room.
Yeah.
And so you being there was, I think, so helpful to all of us and helpful to the production. And the production came out, I still think it's one of the best things Mad Cow ever did, but I might be biased.
Yay.
So among other things you've done, you've moved on. You have been good friends with the Indiana Jones director at the Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I was AD at Indiana Jones for a year. That was right before I came to
Citizens
Street
of Hollywood
and was Hollywood Public Works.
Yes, and who was the character with whom you were very close friends?
What, Buddy Flowers?
Buddy Flowers.
Buddy Flowers.
Yeah. I say that in the past tense. I just mean, you still are.
Yeah, you might still see Buddy Flowers out
Buddy
on the street
Flowers.
every now and then.
Exactly.
I sub over there, and I used to do Mulch, Sweat, and Shears. I do the Pirates and Pals Fireworks Voyage, a lot of stuff at Disney over the years. What am I forgetting? Good. I don't know. I'll think.
Yeah. And you just recently rehearsed into the horror makeup show at Universal.
Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful show.
Oh,
and
I cannot
it's
wait
an
to
honor,
do it with you.
It's an honor to be a part of that cast. There's a lot of really, really great people. You do it too.
And thank you.
There you go. That was a...
Oh, yes. I cannot wait. I love horror makeup show I've said it a million times. It is a great script. It starts out on paper as brilliant, and then we get the ability to make it even better, and it is so much fun. And every single body at that stage is awesome. I am like you. I feel very honored I get to work with these people. Yeah. So I can't wait.
All right. Is there anything else you need to know about my career?
Blood type?
I have no idea.
Sperm count?
Red. Sperm count. Hold on. Let me get some.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
That's going to stain.
Yes.
And that's it.
You know, the sperm banks will pay you for, I think, all the money I let slip through my fingers.
That is Steve Purnick, ladies and gentlemen. You get that all the time. I don't know if this will end up in the show or probably in the extras. I have quoted this so many times. My favorite Steve moment. I was talking to someone who was running through different ailments that his poor wife had gone through. His wife had some health problems. And among the things he was listing, he said, well, she had gone through this, she did this treatment, and then she had a cataract. And as though on cue, as though you were waiting, you walked past the doorway, just turned your head to us and went, "Really? I drive a Rinkin," and kept on walking. It was just...
She had a cataract. Really? I drive a Rinkin.
And I'm like, were you waiting? Had you been waiting your entire life around that corner hoping someone might say the word cataract?
No, you have your file. You know what I mean? If you can access your files fast enough. That's what it is. It's just about... It's not great. It's just speedy.
Yeah, I hear you. That's so much of what improv is about and what our jobs are about. And may we
why
always...
we love Robyn Williams is for the quickness of the mind.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for a quick mind.
Yes, indeed. Well, of the many jobs that you juggle, as so many who have sat there before you, I always say thank you for making the time, because I know juggling all this stuff is crazy. So I'm really happy you got to do this, and thank you for being here. And now we're going to move on to Act 2. Why are you looking confused?
No, it's wonderful. We're talking...
You're like...
What would I would rather do with a night off than talk Facts of Life Season 3.
From your mouth to God's ears. You were looking around kind of like, why are you thanking me for being here? It's like, yes, I do still thank you. So we come back now from the commercial, and we are in the kitchen. Mona is making herself some more hot water with lemon. Is that a Jewish beverage, Steve?
Hot water with lemon?
Hot water with lemon?
Well, it's sure cheap.
No.
Oh.
I did not set that up.
There you go.
Intentionally, but there it is.
Did you hear about the Jewish cheerleader?
No.
Get that quarterback. Jewish girl says, "Dad, I need to borrow $50. He says, $40? What do you need $30 for?
I'm going to start joking. Steve is not performing now. This is what hanging out with him is like.
Yeah, it's pretty true. So yes, she's having water with lemon. Because I guess that's an old grandma thing.
It's a grandma thing. Yeah. Exactly. So Mrs.
And
Garrett,
Mrs. Garrett is worried. How come you're not getting along with Natalie?
We get a Mrs. Garrett. And like many, they are not too far off from Paul Lynde, are they?
No,
they're really not.
No.
So Mrs. Garrett comes down and she's like, "What are you doing down here? What's going on?"
Yeah.
And she says, "Oh, Natalie is mad at me. She says I treat her like a baby." And she does, it's kind of cute. She does defend herself and she says, "It's not like I plan to pinch her cheek. I just look at her and I have to do it."
Yeah.
And that's a grandmother, and that's kind of sweet. And yeah. Mrs. Garrett says she can commiserate because she wants to pinch her kids' cheeks too. And unfortunately, her son is pushing 32.
Right. And then she mentions grandchildren.
And Mrs. Garrett says, "Yes, I don't have any grandchildren. I have 2 sons. One of them is single. One of them is lazy."
Right. And I don't know the show, so there was no payoff for that for me whatsoever, and it doesn't ever get alluded to again.
No. But, I mean, I think it's just funny to say one of my sons could give me grandchildren, but he's lazy.
Too lazy
too lazy to
stuffed.
fuck.
Yeah. Wow. You're just going for the language on this one, aren't you?
This is adult content. Did you not know? Did I not tell you you could?
I work Disney clean.
Oh. You don't want to hear what we say backstage. Now, going into the Facts of Life cinematic universe, or the FOLCU, as I call it, we do know Mrs. Garrett has 2 sons. We met one of them who was a musician on the road, and he was kind of a drifter.
Is he the single or the lazy?
He'd be the single one.
Okay.
Because we only met him less than a year ago. So the lazy one has got to be her other son, which is Raymond. Raymond, in a couple of years, is going to buy a building and give it to her so she can open up her own bakery.
Well, he got over his laziness then, didn't he?
Then as they're talking... so then they come out into the cafeteria. And Mona says, I have this friend, Rose Farillo. And then she says, "It's a friend of mine up there," pointing to the ceiling. And Mrs. Garrett's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And she says, No, she's in the apartment upstairs.
Yeah, 12B. Hilarious.
Boom. There it is. Old people, she says, that young people think that old people should have an open purse and a closed mouth. And Mrs. Garrett says, speaking of obscene language that the censors probably had to have a word with them about, Mrs. Garrett says, "Bull feathers!"
Bull feathers.
Whoa, Edna, damn. She says, "There's nothing the young girls haven't gone through that we haven't been through, or at least haven't heard about on Donahue." Nice reference to the Phil Donahue program, very popular.
Right, yeah. Right. You would have to watch this like on pop-up video or something like that with footnotes, you know what I mean? Because anybody coming up now would have no idea what a Phil Donahue even is.
Sure, yeah. And that's what this podcast is. This is like a pop-up video without the video and the pop-ups.
Yeah.
Moving on. Blair and Tootie come downstairs. I don't know what was going on with the hairdo, with the hairstyle party that was happening in the room upstairs. But Blair is in a bathrobe and has a scarf over her head.
Yes, or as Grandma's about to call it, a babushka.
Babushka. We have never, ever seen Blair wear that in her hair before. We've never seen it again. There's no, like, rollers in her hair. There's no something that she would be concealing other than completely for the purpose of the upcoming story.
Right.
And what happens is Mona says, "Look at you. You are so beautiful." And she's like, "Oh, thank you." And she says, "You look just like me." And Blair's like, "Huh?" And in this cameo, this very large, very long, dangly cameo, is that what it's called?
Yeah, we're not talking about a small role on the show, not that kind of cameo. We're actually talking about one worn around the neck.
Oh, dear.
Because Molly Picon's making a lovely cameo on this.
Yeah, she's making a lovely a walk-on at least. It's very large. And again, Molly's not a very large woman. She's very diminutive, but she has this long thing, and it's like, wow, that's... And then to learn that in the cameo is a picture of herself from when she was 16.
Correct.
You wear that around your neck when you go to bed? Really? Vain. So she pulls out the cameo with the picture of her when she was 16, the photograph taken in the Ukraine of her wearing her babushka.
We never see it, but everybody oohs and ahs around it. And, "Oh, you were beautiful," and, "Oh, you did look like Blair," and then Blair, you did look like this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then she says, "This photo was taken in the war." And they were like, "The war?
Yeah.
You were there for the war?" And she says something along the lines of, they say, "What was it like?" And she says, there's an old saying, war stories are not bedtime stories. And then I forget if she actually starts at that point. But Natalie and Joe, Natalie is back up in the bedroom. We go back up to Mrs. Garrett's bedroom where Natalie is still working on this letter, on how she's going to tell this boy, "Sorry, can't make it."
It's before word processors. You couldn't just cut and paste.
She could have gone to her home computer, which would have been the size of a garage.
Yes.
And then Joe comes in, and wow.
Hey, computers go all the way back to biblical times.
Do they?
Yes. Eve had an apple and Adam had a wang.
Oh, dear. Tip your service, try the veal. Natalie is then, Joe pops her head into the room. And this scene is short and escalates very quickly.
Very quickly.
Where it's like... Where's your grandmother? Oh, she's downstairs because I got mad at her. Why would you do that? You're lucky you got a grandmother. Blah, blah, blah. And then they very quickly, Joe and Natalie are kind of barking at each other. And then it culminates in Joe saying, "I wish I had grandparents." And she says, "All they want to do is love you."
Yeah.
And
they don't ask anything of you.
Yeah.
All they want to do is love you. And it gets a kind of an applause.
And a big applause. Like, they're like, "Yeah, fuck you, Natalie. You're being a lying bitch."
That was...
I'm paraphrasing.
The implication of the applause was,
yes.
"Fuck you, Natalie."
So then we come back to, in the cafeteria, we're now technically in the final scene of the show, and Mona is telling about the Bolsheviks invading their village, I guess.
Yeah. She uses the term Bolsheviks. She also uses the word Cossacks at some point. So this probably would have been the pogroms just pre...
World War II.
No. What she's describing sounds Tsarist, sounds pre-Russian Revolution. So once again, it's a timeline thing. We struggle with timeline all the way through this. Why not do it here too? But,
you're right. But no, as you're saying this, I'm like, duh, you're right.
But the description of it is very pre-Russian Revolution. So, which was what, 1917. So if this is around 1916, and we're dealing with 81, how many years is that? I can't quite do the math.
Well, let's put it this way.
55?
This is 81.
Yeah.
And she's supposed to be, I think, in
65 years.
She's supposed to be in her late 70s now.
Right.
So let's just
round.
round.
So if this was 65 years. If she's in her late 70s, then she would have been, so she would have been about 14.
Yeah.
So that's probably pretty close.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. Because what my brain did was I thought, let's round her up and say she's 81 years old in 1981. Right. Well, she would have been 16 in 1916.
Yeah.
And that ain't World War II. That's that's Russian Revolution. That's the first, the Great War, as they call it. So thank you for correcting me. I should have known that. So then she tells the story of this one mean Cossack was whipping her father. Yeah. And she ran up to him and said, "Stop that." And then he held a gun to her chest and said, "Lie down." And she said, "If you're going to kill me, I'm going to stand." And then
he said, I'm not looking to kill you. I want something else.
Oh, you're right. That's right. And that's where we get the
second. That's why he told her to lie down. He wanted something else.
You're totally right. And then that's where we get the second Mrs. Garrett. Oh, my God! The beautiful.
I mean, and the girls are freaking out. They're hanging on every word. What'd you do? What'd you do? And she said, well, I don't know where I got the strength, but I pushed this guy over. He fell over a stool, and I ran until I got to a cornfield, and I hid in the cornfield.
And they never found her.
Yeah, and Natalie has entered and is hearing the story of her grandma she's never heard before. Yeah. And suddenly she's taken in too. And she's like, man, why didn't you ever tell me this stuff? You don't tell it to a child, she says.
That's true.
She said, but Grandma, I'm not a child anymore. How old were you when this happened? And she tells her I was 15. She said, I'm 15.
Yeah.
They start bonding now.
They do. And then the payoff that you were looking for, you even said it. Where's the song?
Yeah,
you
where's the song?
Okay, we're getting there. We're getting the... Well, where is the song? We got the song. She's like, I think she goes, I want to have another cup of tea with lemon. Yeah. She goes back over to the kettle.
Singing her song.
And...
Where does that song from? Is it something special?
Yeah. It's like she's sitting here, Steve. And... she says, "Oh, that was a song that my boyfriend." She doesn't say boyfriend. What does she say?
Sweetheart, I think.
Yeah, that was a song that my sweetheart used to sing for me, and she does a translation. So she hums it. I'm surprised she didn't sing it in Yiddish.
Yeah.
And then translate it. She just hums the melody and then says the words.
English translation language. Yeah. And it's basically, I will wait for you on this bridge forever, and it's lovely and romantic and all.
Declaration of eternal, never-ending love.
And Natalie says, "Oh my God, that was Grandpa," and she said, "No, this was before Grandpa.
Yeah,
he became my first love became a soldier and went off in the war, and I didn't see him again. I came to America, and then I met your grandfather.
Yeah.
So remember when I was telling you there's always going to be another boy." I wasn't telling you because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I was telling you because I do know.
Nice.
Right. And then they're bonding.
Yeah. And the sort of final thing to build this beautiful experience up is Natalie. That's when Natalie says, "Well, how old were you?" Mm-hmm. And she says, "Well, I was already a grown-up then.
I was already a woman.
I was already a woman. Right. I was 15."
Right.
And Natalie's like, "I'm 15," meaning, so why the fuck are you pinching my cheek still? So
ultimately, they come to this beautiful understanding.
Yeah.
And
where they have to both meet in the middle. It's not one is right and one is wrong, but Natalie is more wrong.
And right. And Grandma, in her wisdom, says, "You know what? Let's call it truce. I will stop treating you like an infant if you stop treating me like an antique."
To the applause of the audience, everyone rejoices. Fences have been mended.
Yeah.
And
what
bridges,
new understandings we have of one another.
Bridges have been built between generations. Gaps are now no longer gappy. And so I think this episode changed the world a little bit, don't you?
No. No.
So,
as much as this podcast will.
oh, you're so sweet. That's so sweet. Well, this has just flown by. I'm kind of like, oh, are we already at the end of the episode? I could sit here and have you throw out more jokes at me for
Nice.
a much longer period of time.
Now, I understand that Mrs. Garrett, you were talking about the spinoff of Tootie's parents or
Yes,
aunt or whatever.
aunt, yeah.
But this was a spinoff itself, right?
Yes, it was. Different Strokes.
From Different Strokes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you ever watch Different Strokes?
I know, not much. Same story. I was completely aware of all the characters and the
You knew
and
what
the
you talking about,
situation.
Willis.
Yes, but I remember several years ago, Dano Sullivan. Did you know Dano? He was a SAC theater guy.
I did
remember
not
he told
know.
me, he said Conrad Bain died from Different Strokes.
Yeah.
And I said, really? I thought it was a heart attack.
On that note, I can't think of a better way to end the show, Steve. Steve Purnick, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for all the fun and all the laughs here and beyond in all of your career. And I hope you'll be able to come back maybe.
What a joy. Bye to all four of you.
Bye. And there you have it. That was Steve Purnick. Now do you understand why saying funny man Steve Purnick just doesn't really scratch the surface of the insane comedy mind this man has? I'm so glad he came on the show, and I'm so glad that he was willing to be a part of this particular episode and give his own bent on it as a Jewish person. So I really, really thank him for that. Just some follow-up to stuff we mentioned on the show. First of all, the head writer for the Carol Burnett show was Saul Turtletaub. That was the particularly Jewish name I couldn't think about and I couldn't remember, and there it is. The other thing is that Tootie's grandparents talking about the good old days, I just wanted to be 100% sure that Steve and I were not being really total freaking assholes going on our little fun riff. And I texted Trinell Mooring, you may recall her, from an earlier episode. I believe it was Molly's Holiday that she did, but Trinell is my African-American friend, and she did respond to my question, do African-Americans refer to or reminisce about the good old days? And her response was, LOL, that was written by white people. And I thought, okay, good. We were right. My point of view, our perspective was on the mark, on the target. That was a good thing. And actually, Trinell went on to say, anytime she's sitting around talking to her friends, her contemporaries, and someone will mention something along the lines of, wouldn't it be cool to go back to this other period of time and experience this thing? Trinell said, she even goes, no, nuh-uh, not going to do it. Do not want to go back to any earlier time. So another thing is Mrs. Garrett referring to her kids and saying that one of them is single and one of them is lazy. The lazy one she is referring to is Raymond, because I looked ahead. In season 5, episode 24, that's the one where Raymond and his wife are having troubles, and there is a concern that it will somehow affect the building and the ownership of Edna's Edibles. And in the course of trying to get them to reconcile, the last word on them getting back together, Mrs. Garrett says, all I want is grandchildren. And when Raymond kind of rebuffs her, Raymond, who is an accountant, by the way, she responds to him, don't worry, they're deductible. So there it is. We are sticking to canon here in the Facts of Life cinematic universe. We are correct. Raymond does not have kids. I was not 100% sure of that. And my final note, getting back to Steve Purnick, a joke I meant to bring back, a great moment that he made me laugh so fucking hard. I think it was after a rehearsal for Laughter on the 23rd Floor, and the big thing on the internet that was making the rounds again was that, here is your drag queen name. It was like your first female pet and your mother's maiden name. And I threw that out there, and Steve was like, what are you talking about? I said, your drag queen name. And Steve said, I don't think about that stuff. I'm straight. And then half a second went by, and he turned and he said, hey, if I were a drag queen, my name would be Dick Tucker. Thank you. He's here all week. Tip your servers. Try the veal. Next week, I'm going to be watching Season 3, Episode 9. It's called Dear Me, and my special guest is going to be funny lady, super amazing actress Lisa Wolf-Pankal. Cannot wait. Thank you so much for listening to this week's show, and remember, the facts of life are all about you. Let's Face the Facts was produced, written, hosted, and edited by me, David Almeida. My theme song was beautifully arranged and recorded by Ned Wilkinson. Our website is facethefactspod.com. You have to drop the let's. And that's where you can find extra pictures, video, and audio extras from the digital cutting room floor. Follow the show on social media. We're everywhere under the handle Face the Facts Pod. And don't forget, go to your favorite podcatchers and subscribe, rate, and review. Tune in again next week for another thrilling episode of Let's Face the Facts.